Do you love playing Pyro but hate how players are just out of range of your flamethrower a little too often for your liking? Do you love the idea of setting people on fire from across the map? Are other Pyros just a non-issue for you? If you said yes to any of the following, I have the guide for you. How yinz doing? I'm an Ian, and this is my TF2 How to Killstreak series, where we look at the best and worst TF2 has to offer and show you how to get a killstreak with it, because everything is a bad idea until it works. Today we will be covering the Pyro's flare guns, so without further ado, let's get into it. The flare guns are a series of secondaries for the Pyro in TF2, meaning you give up the mid-range reliability of the shotguns as well as the utility of the thermal thruster in order to access these weapons. As for what they actually do, that's rather easy to explain. They fire a single target projectile that sets enemies on fire and does bonus damage when they hit an already burning target. This makes the flare guns as a whole better than the shotguns when dealing with foes at long range, but inferior to the shotguns when dealing with targets that can't be set on fire, such as those who are underwater or other pyros. As for what makes them individually unique from each other, we will start with the base flare gun. After all, this is the first of flare guns the average player will come across since it can be acquired from the Pyro Milestone 1 achievement, meaning the majority of you probably already have this weapon. The base flare gun, like all the flare guns, fires a single projectile that sets players on fire before needing to be reloaded, and unlike its contemporaries, will deal a full crit rather than a mini crit on burning players. This means that the flare gun has the best single target damage of any of the flare guns, making this weapon an excellent tool to use alongside the degreaser since it offsets its biggest downside of reduced afterburn, since the flare will override the lower damage over time afterburn of the degreaser in favor of its own. This is assuming, of course, that your target in question didn't just die immediately from having a 90 damage crit flare hit them in the face, something that when dealing with light classes like Scout and Sniper will more often than not be the case, especially if you're using it alongside the degreaser with its increased switch speed, making it perfect for comboing with any of Pyro's secondaries. However, if you're interested in using your secondaries for more than just pure damage, then this next weapon has you covered. The Detonator is possibly the worst of the flare guns in terms of raw damage, dealing mini crits instead of full crits on burning players and having a 25% damage penalty. It even deals more self-damage to you than the other flare guns. However, this feature is actually secretly a boon, since it means when you shoot this at your feet, you can flare jump far greater distances than you would with the other flare guns. That's right, you can use your flares to jump over distances similar to how the soldier can rocket jump, though in most cases this is only slightly better than crouch jumping. The Detonator, however, allows for greater mobility than the other flare guns, making it second only to the thermal thruster in terms of pyro mobility tools. However, unlike the thermal thruster, the Detonator allows you to attack at a distance, making it a perfect middle ground for pyros who want to be able to flank and take routes that would otherwise be impossible without some sort of mobility tool, but also allows you to actually have a ranged option for when players are outside of your flamethrower's range. This makes the Detonator the perfect tool for flanking pyros who want to have a plan B for when WM1 fails. I recommend using the back burner when using the Detonator since it is the one flamethrower that benefits the most from this flank-heavy playstyle. After all, it's a lot easier to get behind the enemy when you can flare jump and take flank routes that would otherwise be inaccessible to you. Also, true to its namesake, the Detonator allows you to manually detonate your flares mid-air, meaning while you do mini crit damage on burning players, you're gonna have a lot easier of a time actually landing those shots than with the flare gun. However, if your aim is so terrible that shooting in any fashion more precise than down this choke point is too much to be asked of you, then you're gonna love this next weapon. The Scorch Shot, much like the Detonator, mini crits rather than full crits on burning foes. It also has a 35% damage penalty, which on the surface will make you think it actually does worse damage than the other flare guns. However, the truth is far more interesting. You see, after you hit an individual with your flare with this weapon, it'll actually linger around for a bit and then explode, doing bonus damage to the target in question as well as setting other nearby allies on fire. Meaning if you hit a light class like Sniper with this and they don't retreat to heal or anything, they'll actually die from the afterburn after a single shot with this weapon. Rubbing salt into this wound, the Scorch Shot actually knocks foes into the air a few inches before letting them actually move around freely, meaning their time to actually go retreat and heal and deal with the afterburn in any meaningful capacity is reduced in comparison to the other flare guns. Because of these attributes, you'll often see this weapon used on choke point heavy maps like Dust Bowl in order to get ungodly amounts of assists from afterburn damage on the scoreboard. You'll also see this weapon paired with the Flog a lot. This is unsurprising, since even if you miss your target, the flare will still explode and deal some decent afterburn damage to all those around it. This means when using the Scorch Shot, you should have no issues building up your oomph meter alongside the Flog. However, this is what I would call a win more loadout, in the sense that if your team's already winning, you will be able to dominate quite easily with this combo. However, if your team's getting spawn camped, it will do you absolutely no good at getting out of spawn. As a result, I advise switching off the Flog if you're in an evenly matched game where Air Blast will become useful to you. Still, out of all the flare guns, the Scorch Shot requires the least amount of skill out of the player in order to reach peak effectiveness. Since in order to maximize the efficiency of this weapon, all you really have to do is figure out how to use your other weapons alongside it, rather than just spamming this thing down choke points whenever you can't use your flamethrower. A good example of this would be to simply shoot this at your foes so they get stunned in the air for a sec, and then smack them in the face with your extinguisher. However, if you would rather end up being the bane of Scorch Shot players, rather than be a Scorch Shot player, or just hate having to deal with ammo whatsoever, you're gonna love the next weapon we have to cover today. The Manmelter is the Pyro's most interesting secondary. Interesting in the sense that when you look at its stats, it makes one think,
what are they thinking?
A 50% faster projectile just results in you getting your muscle memory screwed with so that you miss shots you would otherwise land. Not requiring ammo on a weapon with Pyro is kind of a nothing stat, since enemies drop ammo on death, meaning you should either be able to pick up ammo packs from those you kill, or be far away enough from them that you could easily retreat to an ammo pack and top your ammo pool off quickly anyway, so that doesn't mean anything to you. The only reason anyone uses this weapon at all is because when you use it to extinguish teammates, you get guaranteed crits for every time you do so. This makes it a fun utility for pyros using the Flog or Backburner who want to help out their team, since the Flog is incapable of extinguishing teammates, and the Backburner only does so at a heavily increased ammo cost. This makes the Manmelter a great utility for when you want to hard counter someone using a Scorch Shot down a choke point to try to set your entire team on fire, but generally useless in situations where the enemy team isn't setting your teammates on fire. Combine this with the fact that it doesn't actually have a reload animation, and its extinguishing animation is bugged to not show up half the time despite the fact you can still extinguish teammates, and you have a recipe for a weapon that's very unsatisfying to use. All in all, I give the flare guns the perfect side grade out of 10. They require aim and are objectively worse against other pyros compared to the shotguns, however they give the pyro a much needed ranged alternative, allowing him to contribute to his killstreak without needing to make suicidal plays, allowing him to stay back and spy check more. And while the Manmelter could use some serious rebalancing and the Scorch Shot could use some fine-tuning, the weapons as a whole don't break the fundamental game balance of TF2 in any significant capacity. That's all for now. Like the video if you did, subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one, comment what you want to see me cover in the future. I've been Ian, and this has been my TF2 How to Killstreak guide to the Pyro's flare guns. And stay tuned, the Brass Beast is coming up next.